Good morning.
Good morning.
We're going to give people one more minute to get out here, and then we're going to get started. So if you don't have a seat and you want one, grab one. My name is Susan Hay, and on behalf of the many groups that worked very hard to put this day together, I want to welcome you all to our second annual Day of Waging Peace. I want to acknowledge my husband for the Weather Committee. This is the second year in a row he's been in charge of weather, and we're batting 1,000 here. When we started planning this day, we had two themes we were trying to wrap our minds around. You know what? It's come to this. We thought of our Mothers Uniting's vision of creating a nonviolent and just world for all children. And we focused first on the notion that it was way past time to take violence off the table as an acceptable response. They don't work. As an acceptable response to being angry, being frightened, or wanting more stuff. The second was the belief that we can and we must take better care of the children. That if we take care of the children, all children, so much else will fall into place. And we've built this day around those two ideas. I hope that you find that woven through and reflected in the workshops, in our parade, and in the conversations that you have throughout the day. My hopes for all of us on this day is that we dig deep and that we connect with our strongest yearnings for a peaceful world. That we share broadly with each other in and out of the workshops, on the Peace March, at lunch, that we find a way to build community through this day. And that we leave here continuing to step forward into our commitments for creating a more peaceful world. There is no doubt in my mind that if we do wage peace with all the love, all the commitment, all the humor, and all the forgiveness in our heart, we can in fact create another world. I am really deeply honored to be introducing our two speakers this morning. They're two people who have come to their work for peace and nonviolence through different routes, but ended up in a similar place. I came to know Anne Mulderry through her work with Peaceful Tomorrows, which is an organization of people who lost loved ones during 9/11. And right through their sadness and their sorrow, they organized and they said, "You are not fighting these wars in the names of our loved ones." And they've been working ever since to heal the world through their pain and through their grief. Anne is a mother, she's a grandmother, and she's found a way to continue to love and to continue to believe in nonviolence. And she's here today to talk to us about her journey and her commitment to creating a more peaceful world. Coleman McCarthy has been doing the work of peace education for over 25 years. He was a Washington Post columnist for a number of years. He's the author of several books, and he's been a strong and unwavering voice for the power of nonviolence throughout his life. As the founder and director of the Center of Peace Studies, Coleman has developed peace curricula and teaches peace in high schools, colleges, and prisons. That includes Georgetown Law School and American University. He's taught over 5,000 students the ways of peace. He's also a tireless speaker for anyone who will listen about the importance of educating our young in the ways of peace. As Coleman says, if we don't teach our children about peace, someone else is going to teach them violence. I'm really delighted to invite Anne Mulderry to join us on the stage.
Yes, it's great. Yes, everything is good. You can hear. Well, thank you, Sue, and thank you, Mothers Uniting for Peace. I went to your website, and when I saw mothers and then the parenthesis and others, I thought, oh, this is a group to fall in love with. We have a mutual acquaintance, somebody I treasure in my life, Andrea LeBlanc, who is a veterinarian in Lee, New Hampshire, and her husband died on one of the planes. And we met in the group Families for Peaceful Tomorrows, and she's a symbol of all that is so wonderful, that grows in the grief that we shared. I feel as though my work with Peaceful Tomorrows has confirmed my long-held suspicion that all over the world there are powerhouses of peace that maybe even the people close to them don't suspect exist. And I do feel as though I have found my way to the powerhouse of peace in Keene, New Hampshire, and I'm thrilled to have done so. Especially, you'll be glad to know I headed in the wrong direction to the mountains of Vermont, so it's really very good for me to be here. 2 or 3 years ago, my friend Betsy told me this story. As her grandson Ian was heading off to nursery school, his mother, Maureen, said to him, "School will be so good, Ian. You'll have lots of friends there." A few days into the school year, the teacher drew Maureen aside and said to her, "Your son has the most wonderful way of addressing his classmates. Friend," he says, "will you pass me the blue crayon?" As experienced adults, we take pleasure in Ian's innocent openness, and we take pleasure in our glimpse into his loving and secure family and classroom. At the same time, a part of us mourns in anticipation of what we know will come. One day, Ian will discover, and may have already, that not everyone always behaves in a friendly fashion. He has or will witness and experience conflicts that lead to shockingly unfriendly actions. My son Stephen, a generation older than Ian, didn't habitually address others as friend, but he would have taken the same pleasure we take in Ian's innocent openness, and Stephen would certainly have identified the strong and lasting parallels between his and Ian's view of the world. Stephen had surely experienced challenges to this worldview even before the ultimate moment when he knew his life was to be sacrificed by avenging enemies. In that moment, Stephen and those with him in the upper conference room on the 87th floor of the South Tower, in a final sharing of true friendship, passed a cell phone among them, so that each might, however briefly, speak to or leave messages for those they were leaving. As far as I have ever learned, not one message from that group of 20 dwelled on the evil that surrounded them. One after another, the words given and left, to be treasured forever by those hearing them, were words of love. My home is a small house, a cottage really, in a small village about a 2-hour drive north of New York City. Boston is to the east and also a 2-hour drive, and that's a good thing because my 5 children living in New York and the 2 living in Boston could drive rather easily to me and me to them. The son in San Francisco has to fly to be with us, but he does on many occasions. Just 2 months before that September 11th of 2001, I had moved to this village from the nearby city of Albany, which was where our 3 daughters and 5 sons were raised. We had been blessed with a comfortable home there in a neighborhood rich in neighbors and friends, and my children had had a grace-filled place to grow up before college and career opportunities took them away. And then the family home was sold, and the smaller house in the village of Kinderhook, just 30 minutes south of Albany, had already become the family's new gathering place. The end of summer holiday, Labor Day of 2001, had seen a great gathering in our new old house, which was in need of lots of work and lots of workers, down to the youngest grandchild. Our brilliantly happy memories of that time together are now forever entwined with the brilliant beauty of the world on the day that would bring such devastation and sorrow to so many. At about 8:30 on that day, I left my house to walk to the center of the village and attend my first yoga class in a spacious, high-ceilinged room above the village hall. At the close of class, the teacher invited us to meditate silently on a word of our own choosing. Light pouring through the tall arched windows, reflecting on creamy walls, on the pressed tin ceiling and honey-hued wooden floors, made my choice easy, and I was filled with gratitude for the light that fills our world, our minds, our hearts. On the way home, I stopped for my mail at the post office, always a quiet place at that time of day. In my box, along with regular letters and bills, was the notice of a package. The postmistress and I were alone as I smilingly told her I hoped there was a good surprise in the package she had for me. Yes, she said, I hope so too, especially on a day like today. What do you mean? I sensed something seriously wrong. Oh, you don't know. A plane went into the World Trade Center. I barely managed to say I have a son who works there, and the look that came over her face told me she was already filled with sorrow for me. It was nearing 10 a.m. now, and my deliberate walk home, one foot in front of the other, was a time of girding for all that was to follow. I put myself in the hands of God. I put us all in the hands of God. And I prayed for strength to face whatever was ahead. There were 8 messages on my normally very quiet telephone answering machine. The first was from my son Stephen, the 6th of the 8 children, the 4th of the 5 sons, saying goodbye, his voice telling me that whatever was going to happen, he would be all right, and so would I. His voice saying, I love you, a plural you if ever there was one, because not for a moment did I not know this was a message for all he was leaving. Stephen worked in the South Tower of the World Trade Center, the second to be hit, the first to fall. Directly across the street, his sister Amy, our last child and 3rd daughter, worked in the World Financial Center. The second message on my machine was from Amy's friend Dan, whose shaken voice betrayed his deepest fears. Anne, have you heard from Amy? I don't know where she is. The 3rd call was from my husband, his shattered voice asking me, pleading with me to call him. All the other calls were from family and friends begging for word that the children were all safe. I reached my husband immediately, and he said he was coming to be with me. He asked me not to turn on the television. I had no inclination to do so. I stepped out my kitchen door into the backyard, and sitting with the phone in my lap, descended into deep prayer, asking to be connected to all that was happening and to all who were in jeopardy, and preparing myself for the horror of having to accept that 2 of my children were dead and I was alive. The phone rang. It was my daughter Amy. Joy rose within me from depths never guessed at. Again and again, waves of joy filled me, rolled through me, before I had the strength and breath to speak the only words possible. Where is Stephen? The sister who had seen, had heard, had known her brother's destruction as she was carried away from it in a river of people escaping the ruined buildings, could not answer. Into that void of silence came rushing waves of grief and despair that shook the foundation of my being. With every wave, a howling came from me, unlike any sound I had ever experienced or known, an ancient cry to the heavens, unmistakable in its meaning. That dear daughter and sister heard a sound no human ear would ever seek to hear or ever forget hearing. And even in that moment, I knew my life would be spent honoring the grief and honoring the joy that had come to me. My loss must forever link me to all the loss of all the ages past and the ages to come. Just so, my joy must link me forever to all the joy of all the ages past and to come. How to resist falling in love with death was the question. Depression and despair is one way of falling in love with death. Violence and aggression is another way of falling in love with death. I prayed each day would bring me what I needed to resist those tempting, easy answers. And so it happened. I believe that love is the only eternal element of our human existence grew ever deeper. Stephen died at the age of 33 because others in his world had determined he and anyone of his nation was not a friend. Because of a label Stephen bore, Stephen had been determined to be an enemy who deserved to have his life ended. We ask ourselves, how, in the name of God, can such things happen? In the immediate aftermath of September 11th, my attention was focused on my family as we charted our own collective and individual journeys through grief. As the veils of mourning began to lift, I began speaking privately and publicly of my own certainty that a violent response was not the answer. I had long ago come to the certainty that in relationships between and among individuals and nations, violent retaliation only sows dragon's teeth, from which spring more horror, more destruction. In the mid-60s, when I had come to oppose the United States' involvement in Vietnam, I had become active in local efforts to increase public awareness of the consequences of this war, of the damage being done the Vietnamese people, of the damage being done to our own young people, forced to bear arms in a war that recognized no civilians. As a member of Pax Christi, the Catholic International Peace Organization founded by Germans and Belgians after World War I attended vigils, pamphleted at defense factories, rode on long bus rides to lobby elected officials. And so now I re-entered that way of witnessing, standing in public places, in candlelight vigils for peace with local groups, traveling to participate in nearby fasting and prayer observances. It wasn't until March of 2002 that I learned of the group known as September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows. My introduction was a news release sent me by email. The headline was September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows Statement on the Iraq War. The subheading was a quote by the Reverend Martin Luther King. The past is prophetic in that it asserts that wars are poor chisels for carving out peaceful tomorrows. One day we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means. How much longer must we play at deadly war games before we heed the plaintive pleas of the unnumbered dead and the maimed of past wars? I would like to read the news release to you so you can hear the words that were a clarion call from me, words that spoke so directly to my own inner convictions and I expect to yours as well. September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows condemns unconditionally the illegal, immoral, and unjustified U.S.-led military action in Iraq. As family members of September 11th victims, we know how it feels to experience shock and awe, and we do not want other innocent families to suffer the grief that we have endured. While we also condemn the brutality of Saddam Hussein's regime, it does not justify the brutality, death, and destruction being visited upon Iraq and its citizens by our own government. What others may view as a policy decision, we see clearly as the murder of innocent people. Death among the civilian population in Iraq will be immediate, the result of bombing that kills indiscriminately. Especially at risk are the children who make up 50% of Iraq's population. Death will also come later from malnutrition and disease caused by the interruption of vital relief services and the destruction of infrastructure for supplying food and medicine. More deaths will occur years from now as a result of the horrendous environmental impacts of waging war using lethal contaminants such as depleted uranium, a substance banned by the European Union. We are also concerned about this war's consequences for America's military personnel, brave women and men who enlisted to defend our country, only to find themselves sent to fight an unjust war of aggression. Our prayers are with them and their families, and our hopes are that they will return soon. Meanwhile, American citizens will bear the staggering costs of military action and the resulting reduction in spending on domestic infrastructure and social programs. We assert that Congress' lack of accountability for this war is a serious threat to our democracy. We call on the House and the Senate to fulfill their constitutional roles, both as representatives of the public will and as a check against the abuse of power by the executive branch. And we call on them to defend America from all of the threats, economic, political, and military, that gather against it. This war will not make America safer. On the contrary, it has already resulted in heightened anti-American sentiment around the world and is likely to promote further terrorist attacks, not just today, but years from today. It will not protect American families from another September 11th. Therefore, members of September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows will continue to oppose this war and to draw attention to its civilian victims. We will demand compensation for them, as we did for innocent civilians killed and injured by our bombs in Afghanistan. These casualties must be included as we tally the costs of choosing to wage war. Finally, we will keep the faith with millions of people across the United States and around the world who have formed a truly international community favoring peace and declaring this war immoral. We are confident that, in spite of the events of today, the wisdom of their views will prevail as the 21st century unfolds and as we continue to build a global community that honors humanity, keeps families whole, and renders war obsolete. I'm so pleased that you gave me the opportunity to say all those words again. They are so prophetic. They stirred me then and they stirred me now. These are the words that brought me into contact with the admirable people who reached out in their grief to find each other and to articulate an alternative to violent retaliation. They are a group mighty in their diversity, mighty in their passion, and mighty in their refusal to lapse into easy answers to hard questions. I am privileged to be numbered among them and to have met, through them, the extraordinary individuals who were ripped from their lives and from the world. Through Rita, I met her brother Abe, who died with the wheelchair-bound coworker he would not abandon. Through Colleen, I got to know her brother Billy, who died because his work brought him to a one-day meeting in the North Tower. In Adele's home, I felt the presence of her son Timothy, and felt this valiant man's commitment to his duty as a fireman to save others, a commitment that plunged him into the inferno. I know through the writings of David, his brother Jim. I mourn with Barry, Kelly, and Ryan for their brother Craig, who died at his desk in the Pentagon. I see in the eyes of Andrea the deep reflection of her graceful geographer husband, a man who spent his lifetime embracing always deeper understandings of other cultures, a man with a mind and heart large enough and strong enough for whole worlds of family and friends. These are the people whose gifts were taken from us that day, my Stephen with him. Stephen, our family peacemaker, who died in community, gathered in a conference room with co-workers, sharing one working telephone to leave messages of love. When Stephen reached his brother Peter, and Peter implored him not to hang up, Stephen's gentle answer was, "I have to pass the phone on. I love you, brother. I love you, brother." Here are some words of David Portorti, a founder of Peaceful Tomorrows and the author of the book describing the organization's beginnings and goals, when he addressed peace rallies in Japan and Korea. He closed with these words: "It is good to know who your enemies are, but it is more important to know who your friends are. While we know that the terrorist threat is real, I believe that we can pursue better, smarter remedies using the power of alliances and the rule of international law. I believe that terrorism is not the problem only. Terrorism is a symptom of the problem. The problem is militarism, imperialism, nationalism, materialism, the belief that the lives of some matter more than the lives of others. These are the problems and misconceptions we must remedy, but we must first be willing to recognize them. and we must be careful to preserve our freedom in whatever we do. So much of what we are told today is that we have no choices. We must respond with force. But to me, freedom is about having choices. We must consider all of our options before choosing the last resort of war. That's the end of David's quote. As a Christian, I follow a leader who told his followers that the most important law for them would always be to love God and to love their neighbors as themselves. This leader further explicitly instructed his followers to love their enemies. Yet my country, led by an administration that claims to be true followers of the same leader, an administration that impugns the faithfulness and patriotism of such as myself and my dead son, has dedicated our nation's resources to killing those arbitrarily labeled enemies. Furthermore, the people now controlling our government have declared and worked to implement an agenda that results in securing and hoarding the riches of the land for the minority class, the elite, to which they, our leaders, belong. And this is attempting to be accomplished by them, not only in our own land, but in any land they declare to be an enemy. And this is happening in our day, in Ian's day, in the very land to which so many of our forebears came filled with the hope and trust that they and all those who came to work and contribute to this noble experiment of a democratic republic would be joined in creating and ever recreating a world in which privilege meant only the privilege to be part of a people and government that would be one and the same, in a country where the people and the government would strive to fulfill the vision of a nation dedicated to balanced cooperation, to solve problems, and to not fall into deadly attempts to kill problems. We as a people and as a nation have been guilty in the past of dreadful failures to live up to this ideal. But in the face of the evil consequences of our failures, we have found the humility as a nation and as a people to pick ourselves up and start over again, to continue to seek new ways to realize the dream the founders began and we build on, to never stop believing we can keep striving for the ideals we proclaim to the world. That's what shines so strongly through to us in Ian's story. We can see in Ian and his companions the echo of the founders, controlling all their contrary impulses and struggling to continually ask each other, "Friend, will you pass me your version of the Fifth, the First, the Seventh Amendment to the Constitution we are writing here?" On this last September 9th, Judith and Bill Moyers were given the Union Medal from the Union Theological Seminary in New York for their contributions to faith and reason in America. I read these words of Bill Moyers on the Tom Paine Common Sense website, and they have helped me see clearly and face where we are as a nation today. Should I keep talking?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I quote the Bill Moyers words. "Terrorists win only if we let them, only if we become like them, vengeful, imperious, intolerant, paranoid. Having lost faith in all else, zealots have nothing left but a holy cause to please a warrior God. They win if we become holier warriors too, if we kill the innocent as they do, strike first at those who had not struck us. Allow our leaders to use the fear of terrorism to make us afraid of the truth. Cease to think and reason together, allowing others to tell us what's in God's mind. Yes, we are vulnerable to terrorists, but only a shaken faith in ourselves can do us in." That was the end of the quote, but then Moyers goes on to cite endorsements of violence in the Quran and the Bible, and he reminds us that the violence of God tradition remains embedded deep in the DNA of monotheistic faith. We know that fundamentalists the world over and at home consider their sacred texts to be literally God's word on all matters. Millions believe that God slaughters, Moyers reminds us, and he takes us back to 9/11 4 years ago. Here's a quote. The slaughter in the World Trade Center was the result of Osama bin Laden reading his sacred texts closely and literally, and calling on Muslims to resist what bin Laden described as a fierce Judeo-Christian campaign against Islam. The ruins were still smoldering, says Moyers, when the Reverends Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell went on television to proclaim that the terrorists were God's punishment of a corrupt America. They said the government had adopted the agenda of, and here Moyers quotes the evangelists, of the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians. And they stated that Almighty God is lifting his protection from us. Suddenly, we were immersed in the pathology of a holy war as defined by fundamentalists on both sides. Moyers goes on to warn against the dangers that ensue when a major political party in a democracy becomes theocratic and uses its idea of God as a battering ram on not just the war, but every issue: crime and punishment, foreign policy, health care, taxation, energy, regulation, social services. The great moral issues of the radical right, now the dominant force in America's governing party, do not include building a moral economy, Moyers charges. And he charges them also with culpability in upholding a system of class and race in which, as we saw in the response to the Hurricane Katrina, the rich escape and the poor are left behind. Perhaps many of you watched the Higher Ground Benefit for New Orleans broadcast over PBS last Saturday night. It seemed to me one city's love letter for another, a tribute to the nation's spirit brought to us by a threatened but brave PBS. It moved me with pride in our people, the compassion that was evidenced again and again over the course of the evening. Nekesa Mumbi Moody, writing for the Associated Press, said, quote, "The 5-hour Jazz at Lincoln Center's Higher Ground Hurricane Relief Benefit concert Saturday night was stirring not only for its music, but for the emotionally charged performances and speeches that mourned the tragedy that struck New Orleans, but also assigned blame. When the hurricane struck, it did not turn the region into a third world country. It revealed one," said actor Danny Glover. Katrina was not unforeseeable, said Harry Belafonte. It was the result of a political structure that subcontracts its responsibility to private contractors and abdicates responsibility for health care, housing, and even evacuation altogether. Bill Cosby called on the American people to hold government accountable. "This happened to the people," he said. "The Constitution says of the people, by the people, for the people. But the people who got the office got into office and forgot about the people," he said. I heard others say words that will stay with me also. The shoulder of technology has been put to the wheel of death instead of the wheel of life. The weapons that exist watch us sleep and aim at our dreams. May the homeless of New Orleans not become homeless shadows in other cities. And perhaps the words that struck me most deeply: poverty is the weapon of mass destruction. So what do we who live in these times and are charged with responsibilities to the Stevens and Amys and Ians and Amals and Jamils of today and tomorrow do? Last weekend, my family gathered on an island in Lake George in the beautiful Adirondacks, and on the fourth return of the day our Stephen died, we scattered the cremated remains so carefully collected and identified by the New York City Medical Examiner's Office. As Stephen's ashes floated away, mingled with the hydrangeas from the front garden in Kinderhook, silent tears flowed as slowly as the waters. And 3 generations in community once more remembered our beloved son, brother, and uncle, and once again admitted the grief we will never become used to. Then grace allowed happy memories to rise from our hearts to our lips in tender tribute to Stephen's love for us and our love for him. I've placed my faith, trust, and hope in a caring Creator who eternally redeems and loves all of creation. But the days following my return from Lake George were hard days, when I went deep into a dark place where the temptation to despair is strong. Coming out of that place demands determination, as we all know. So I must tell you that preparing to be here with you today was a lifeline. Knowing I would be with people who won't let go of the belief that the earth is meant to be and can be made to be a good place and not a hell for all people was what kept me going. You are as determined as I am to hold tight to the truth that Ian brought with him to nursery school, and to persevere in persuading others that peacemaking, not war-making, is pleasing to the God of creation, redemption, and eternal love. Writing about the Higher Ground concert, John Pirellis in the New York Times stated, "The concert's most touching moment was a performance by the New Orleans trumpeter, Irwin Mayfield. His father is still among the missing. Mayfield played Just a Closer Walk with Thee. From a hushed, sustained, almost tearful beginning, it turned more assertive and ornate, with growls and extended slides, determined to rise above sorrow. Thank you for helping me rise above sorrow, and for the honor you have given the September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows by inviting one of us to be here with you, to work and hope with you for a future where all can be joined not only in shared grief, but in joys that only come when we have attained the wisdom to ask of others, friend, will you pass the peace? Will you pass the justice? Will you pass the fruits of creation for us to all share? And now I'm very happy to give you the inspiring Coleman McCarthy.
To be with you today and to be with all of you. I come from Washington, D.C., and I'll be with you most of the day, and I thank Sue and Bill for organizing the conference and for coming out on this wonderful morning. I want to talk to you briefly about a few of the issues. We'll have some time for some questions and answers and disagreements and dissent. I like people who disagree with me. I have no choice in that matter. As a left-wing journalist, I get a stack of mail that high every week from readers around the country who call me a fool, jerk, know-nothing, ignoramus, idiot. And then I read my negative mail. So I'm accustomed to a good, lively debate. And I did bring some books along, and we have some for sale over here and inside. And I want to donate a book to the Peace Organization. I'll be happy to sign that book. It's a little bit risky, though, I'll tell you, when you donate books to peace organizations. I gave a talk a few years ago to one of them, and I just had a new book that was out. It was a $20 book, and I donated a copy to the head of the organization, and I signed it. I praise you for all the noble deeds you're doing for peace in the world, and I gushed on, and I signed it with warmest regards. We'll be friends forever. I gave him a copy of my $20 book. Well, a few years later, I'm going through that same little town. I happen to go to one of those old, used, secondhand bookstores. I think you know the rest of the gruesome story. But for you sadistic ones, I'll go on. I started to browse around, and there was my autographed $20 book selling for 80 cents. So, if you're into masochism, take up the writing of books. It wasn't all agony, however. In fact, there was a moment of sheer ecstasy. I started to browse around to see what some other authors were selling for. And I saw a copy of a book by our good brother George Will selling for 40 cents. So there is a God of justice. How do we become peacemakers? And we either become agonizers or organizers. That's why this is a good conference. We're to organize, not just describe the problems we have. We either end up as one or two types of people, either problem describers or solution finders. And as a writer, I've interviewed many of the great peacemakers over the years. Desmond Tutu, South Africa. I interviewed Martin Luther King when I was a young reporter starting out. Mother Teresa from Calcutta, Perez Esquivel from Buenos Aires, Alva Myrdal from Sweden, Sean McBride from Dublin, Ireland, Mary Corrigan from Belfast, all Nobel Peace Prize winners. And I'd always ask them, how do you become effective in peace work? And they gave two answers. You got to go into schools, number one, because that's where the people are. And number two, you need three essentials to be a peacemaker: a commitment to prayer, a commitment to service, and a commitment to nonviolence. We mean by prayer not your westernized, give-me-eyes prayer, oh God, give me this, God, give me that. We talk about the prayer of cooperation, not the prayer of asking. That's the prayer of Amos and Isaiah, our Hebrew prophets, some of our Christian saints, and our Islamic saints, and our Buddhist saints, and the Jains and the Baha'is. They all reversed it and said prayer is nothing at all about asking. It's about cooperation. And cooperation with what? With our gifts. I could interview each one of you this morning as a journalist and find out each of you has been given enormous gifts by way of health, intellect. I'm sure most of you are from loving families. You need not be going off to a church or temple or mosque or house of worship to be prayerful. You can be a devout atheist and yet have a deep spirituality about your life. Albert Camus, the great French novelist, was an atheist, yet the Jesuits kept asking him in to give sermons at their churches. Why? A deeply spiritual man. It was also obvious. A contemporary of Albert Camus in the France of the 1940s was Simone Weil, W-E-I-L, great writer, philosopher. And she knew the answer to every question until one day in class, a student raised her hand and said, "Professor, what is love?" The great mind was caught off guard by that question. Didn't know what to answer. It haunted her. I should know that, because everything goes back to love ultimately. Here I claim to be a philosopher. Suddenly, without warning, she dismissed the class and said, "I'm not qualified to teach you until I can answer that question." Everybody gets up and leaves. She resigned from the Sorbonne. Finally ended up working in an automobile factory on the assembly line. Greasy, grimy, grubby work, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week on the line. And none of the factory workers there knew who she was. They didn't know that she's the great intellectual, the great writer. After 1 year, she came out and said, "I now know what love is. It's no more than asking the person who's next to me, 'What are you going through?' and then acting on the answer." Love, she wrote, is a command to action, not just an emotion. I think many of you know that already in your personal lives, your political lives, your academic lives, and hopefully in your spiritual lives. That type of spirituality is available to all of us. Very little to do with doctrines or creeds or dogmas. Just asking the person next to me, "What are you going through?" and then acting on the answer. If you're going through tough times, I'll climb the hills with you. If you're going through good times, I'll celebrate with you. The second essential is a commitment to service. My wife and I have 3 boys. We live in Washington, D.C., and we would always have friends over for dinner when the boys were younger, and of course we would always discuss the issues over dinner, because as you know, there's a law in Washington, D.C. that requires everybody to have issues dinners. You just can't sit there and enjoy your meal like normal people. You got to discuss those issues, get worked up. And someone would see the boys sitting there. Of course, they want to relate to the young people. And I hear some fool go over and ask the inevitable question, now boys, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'd say to myself, what a dumb question that was. I said it to myself, of course. I don't want to ruin the party too soon. Whether we start talking about Bush for that. Ask the children the question that matters. How do you want to serve society when you're ready? And get into their hearts at an early age. We expect service from you. That's where you find your joy and guaranteed where you find your purpose in life. I teach, as Sue said, at a number of schools: Georgetown Law, University of Maryland, American U, 3 public high schools and a prison. One of the high schools is a very wealthy school. Kids are all going to do just fine, so they are led to believe. The other 2 are very poor schools. How poor? Well, one's a big chaotic high school. We've lost about 5 of our children to homicides in the past few years. We now have 6 police in the halls, armed with weapons and wearing bulletproof vests. The other school is one of the poorest schools in America. How poor? There's no cafeteria, no gym, no auditorium, no lockers, no athletic fields. Anybody go to a high school that poor? I doubt it. And it's the closest school to the White House, only 5 blocks away. We've yet to have a president come to that school. Oh, they'll go out to California, Ohio, Texas, and give great talks on school reform. Leave no child untested. That's a big one with Brother Bush, the C student at Andover. Everybody get that one? All right. Stay alert now, slip them in. Trouble with us teachers, we're so busy packing ideas into the kids' heads, ideas and theories, that they leave us handicapped. They leave us idea-rich, but experience-poor, unbalanced folks. What's the remedy? Get them outside the classroom to be of service to somebody. Let's go work in a homeless shelter. Let's work in a migrant worker camp. Let's go teach in a prison. Let's work with Special Olympics. Let's teach somebody how to read this semester. This country has about 50 million people who are illiterate. That's a pretty big number. That's more people than the last election that voted for George W. Bush. And it was probably the same group, too. Now, that was a cheap shot. But it felt good, didn't it? All you lefties like that one? All right. A little raw meat for you. Get you started. Next time you come to Washington, try to find the real city. Because there's 2 cities there, like New Orleans. And suddenly the media discover poor people in New Orleans. I thought it was just Fats Domino playing the piano. Same with Washington, D.C. We have the highest dropout rate of any city in America for high school students. In between the White House and the Capitol, that 2-mile stretch, is the homeless belt of America. There's 7 homeless shelters. We have Caesar on one end of town and Pharaoh's on the other. And in between, the forgotten poor. So I try to get my classes outside the classroom as much as I can. Go take care of somebody in pain. Because that's experiential knowledge, not theoretical. Experiential knowledge stays with you. Ideas come and go. I took my Georgetown Law School class the other day to a women's shelter run by some Carmelite Catholic nuns. They've been doing this work for years. I took the class there because I'd rather have them see a sermon than hear a sermon. So we go in, a late afternoon. There are about 40 homeless women hunched over their soup and saltines having their dinner. And the law class looked on in amazement. And they realized these are women outside the law. These are women for whom the law represents only one thing: the failure of love. That's all laws are, really. So the nun comes over and greets us, and I said, "Sister, I'd like to help out. I'll tell you what, I'll go back to my neighborhood, I'll go around the block, I'll get some food and clothing, I'll fill up my car with it and bring it down next Saturday morning for the homeless women." Well, Sister looks up at me and says, "Oh, that's wonderful. We love it when you NPR liberals come around with your Volvos filled up with food for us. It touches us deeply." Sister had a slightly cynical side to herself that occasionally flares, it did then. She said, listen, good friend, if you want to help out around here, skip all that fuzzy-wuzzy feel-good number, which you seem to have a special talent for. Gave me another whack. I think the nun was in a rather foul mood. It was the beginning of Lent. She was having lemons for breakfast. Only the Catholics got that one. All right. You know, lemons, penance, God, all that. All right. She said, listen, if you want to help out, friend, just go talk to that lady in the corner. She pointed to a bedraggled, toothless woman, 70 years old, wrinkled skin, strung out hair. She had the agony of the earth in her eyes. I said, you mean just talk to her, that's all? And the nun said, yes, you'd be doing plenty. Hardly anybody talks to the women here. Oh, you come around with your little food bundles of Thanksgiving and Christmas and feel as though you're the essence of kindness. We have enough food and clothing here, but we don't have enough people to talk to the ladies in the corner. But go talk to them. And we did. And many in the class were changed that day. How do I know? That's one of the great joys, those of you who are teachers, we get to keep up with the students. I always ask them, what do you remember about those 3 or 4 years getting your law degree? I expect they're going to tell me about that great momentous day that we all discussed the nuances of the Ninth Amendment. They tend to forget that for some odd reason, but they do remember the day we went to the women's shelter, because it woke them up and shook them up. And as a result, they go into public interest law. They go into poverty law. They go into welfare reform law. We have enough lawyers taking care of Michael Jackson and Martha Stewart, but we don't have enough lawyers to talk to that lady in the corner. But it's not enough to get the kids out to go do service. That's fine, but it often becomes mere dabbling. You got to come back to the classroom and make the connections between policies and people victimized by the policies. Why are our prisons filled up more and more with poor people, with people who are addicted to drugs who need to be treated, not punished? Why are the soup kitchens running out of food? Why are we spending more money building bombs and building character in our schools? The schools are penniless. I make no money teaching in my public high schools. I couldn't take money in conscience. I volunteer. But the kids are grateful to get out of the classroom. They can figure, hey, I can take care of somebody's pain, but then come back in the classroom. Who's causing this pain politically? How does that keep happening? That's the tough part, and that's the radicalizing part. You got to combine service with policies. The third essential is a commitment to nonviolence. I am a pacifist. I'm also an anarchist. I figured you might as well do both together, saves a lot of time and trouble. I began to wonder, after interviewing all these Nobel Peace Prize winners, can you teach peace? Every government claims it wants peace. Well, can you teach it? Only one way to find out. I went to that high school near the White House, a poor school where 2 of my boys went to school also. I asked the principal, can I come in and teach a course on radical nonviolence? I can't pay you, she said. That's okay. That's no problem. Will you let me do it? She said, sure, give it a try, see what happens. I began to do so. In fact, those textbooks going around, if you pass those books around, and I brought our textbook today over here with us, 2 books called Solutions to Violence. Just pass maybe one of each of those. Just take one book and pass those around the back. Okay? Start them out in the back, okay? And we read the literature of peace. And you read some Gandhi, King, Merton, Day, Musty, Jesus, Francis, Amos, Tolstoy, Einstein, Buddha, Sojourner Truth, Anne Ballou, George Fox, John Woolman on the first day. And then we really get into it. And someone always jumps up and I run off those names. How'd you hear of all those people? How come we haven't heard of them? You haven't heard of them because you go to conventional schools where we teach everything but. How do I know that? Well, let me ask you 2 questions. How many of you went to a high school where they offered you courses either in peace studies or conflict resolution and gave you credit for those courses? Hands? No hands, maybe 1 or 2 hands goes up. If this was a peace-loving, peace-building, peace-seeking, and peace-affirming society, every hand would have gone up. Second question. How many of you went to a high school or are in a high school now where they required you to take algebra and geometry? All hands go up. So there's a good chance you graduated from high school, as I did, as peace illiterates. But we make sure you graduate from high school knowing all about pi r squared times bonkazoids, crankazoids, dorkazoids, lunazoids, hemorrhoids, steroids, and AP-oids for the deep thinkers. Who cares? Have you ever seen a help wanted ad for an algebraist? I haven't. Now, if you like algebra and geometry, that's noble and wonderful. I think it's kind of odd anybody would, but we need a few odd people around for diversity. Yes, we have an algebra lover here at Keene. Yes, we're diverse. Let me ask you a question. How often do you go out with your wife, husband, sweetheart, or partner and lean over dinner time and say, "Oh, darling, I've been waiting all day to talk to you tonight about algebra"? You do that often? Well, if you do, you may need a little bit of therapy. We're going to get some help for you. We got some anti-algebra pills for you. Well, we should talk about our conflicts. Why do we have them? Because we have them every day. There was a study done recently by the American Psychiatric Association that found out that the average American family, when it's together, has a conflict every 8 minutes. And those are the functional families. Just no ongoing war zone, the rest. So when you talk about peacemaking, it's got to start at home. And that is one of the dark secrets about the peace movement. Many great peacemakers were wretched people at home. Gandhi was an awful husband. He was an awful father. Tolstoy, awful husband, a cruel father. Martin Luther King was an awful husband, a distracted father. Albert Einstein, a great writer on peace. He was cruel to both of his wives. You got to take care of people at home. It got so bad with Gandhi. He had 4 sons. The oldest boy said, "I'm going to get even with my father someday for all the time he's been absent from my life." The boy craved a father, but Gandhi was always going off to jail, marching, doing good deeds for the world. And the son said, "I'll get even one day." You know what he did? He joined the army. And that did get to Gandhi. Gandhi disowned the boy. He was ashamed. Then the son said, "I'll really show you now." He became dissolute. He became an alcoholic and a prostitute. Gandhi's own son. It starts at home. You got to take care of people who are counting on you. And then go out. And where should we go? We should go into schools. We have 78,000 elementary schools in this country. We have 28,000 high schools and 3,100 colleges. All of those, beginning in first grade, second grade, ought to be teaching the basics of nonviolence, of mediation, conflict resolution, the history and the successes of alternatives to violence, as well as pacifism. The literature is vast, but we never went to schools ourselves. That's what we ought to do. We ought to begin organizing our schools. And why do that? Because that's where the military is. You know the numbers. In 1990, the junior ROTC program was just picking up speed. It was in 1,400 American high schools. It is now in over 300. It's now in over 3,000 high schools. It's more than doubled. The budget for the junior ROTC programs in 1990 was $65 million. It is now $293 million, almost 4 times as much. We had 216,000 students in the junior ROTC programs in 1990. Now there are over 500,000. That happened largely because Colin Powell, when he was chairman of the Joint Chiefs, he went into high schools endlessly and got the ROTC programs in there. And when he left after 5 years as chairman of the Joint Chief, he gave a press conference. And he was asked, what are you really proudest of, General Powell? And the press always gave Powell pretty much a free ride. Rarely asked him any tough questions, even today. Even after he was snookered going to tell Bush's propaganda at the UN. So he's asked, what are you proudest of, General? He says, I got the junior ROTC program in over 500 high schools. In other words, I militarized the 14 years old. No wonder there's no draft. They're in the high schools. That's where we ought to be. Why aren't we just as smart? Why don't we do that? Because the schools are there. You don't need to build anything. You just got to go in and tell them, hey, this is our tax money. Because as was said before, unless we teach our children peace, somebody else will teach them.
She's staying home then? Or? No, she's coming. She's going to come. Okay.
Anybody who wants to carry the sign, carry it. Read it. Oh, I'm not holding it.
Cool sign.
Thanks.
Did you make it? No. You just kicked it up? How about you? What do you got?
I got Gandhi. She's holding it. Let's get Granny.
Let's go. Here we go.
Yeah, see?
Terry, you stay with Granny. I'm going to get people singing.
Okay.
This land was made here
Land is your land, your land from California. Yeah, the whole other side.
Wave, Jesus.
St. Francis? Okay. Why does he go first?
Yeah, you playing almost to the chorus.
Give me the light.
I don't know. Oh, cell phone.
Right now, Jake's having a ball because that's his music. It's mine.
Driving by. Yeah, right. Maybe Daphne. Jake, you had it first.
Going? Having fun? Yeah?
How are you? Are you
I asked the chief of police. I came just for the walk because the girls, were in childcare. Hi, Danny.
Make it better.
of the day. And you guys are just... Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, I am going to say a very few words here today. And really what I'm going to talk about is honoring some of the people who have held the space open for us in Peace Work by being on this square week after week after week in the vigil. These people, I don't know about you, but they have haunted me. And I absolutely attribute part of what woke me up and got me moving in this whole arena to their presence, their silent but ever-present vigil. And so I just want to read some names and ask you, when I read your name, I don't know where you are out there, but I think you're here today. Maura Burnham. Vernon Martin. Thayer Kingsbury. Sally Sullivan. Where are you, Sally? Sally here? Chris Hansen. And Paul Cole and to this community that they have showed up here week after week after week and said, this is not my vision for my country. This is not how I believe we need to live. There is so much more we're capable of. Meg has written a poem, and she's going to read that poem to us. And then I'm going to ask Lisa to introduce Granny D, who is here with us again, and that is just so joyful.
When Kate first asked me to read a poem, I thought that's easy. I thought that's easy. I've got 2 poems that are going to be in an anthology, 2 peace poems. But when I looked at the titles, when I looked at the titles, one was called Wishful Winter, the other was called Exploring Spring, and they didn't seem like the right time to be reading them. So I wrote one called Blazing Autumn. I want to think of country roads dressed in yellow-leaf birches and crowns of scarlet maples, wandering among fields of orange pumpkins. I want blazing colors, not blazing guns and roadside bombs. I want to remember raptors gliding by Pac-Monadnock, picking blueberries on Pitcher Mountain, contra dancing in Nelson's Town Hall, not bombs in Baghdad and shooting in Fallujah. I want to hear that peace is flowing up and down the Tigris and Euphrates, that all the troops are home, and everyone is singing, I ain't gonna study war no more.
Thank you, Meg Klein, for all your faithfulness on this square and in other ways. Well, I want to take, my name is Lisa Marr. I'm part of Mothers Uniting, and I want to take a quick poll. If you've run for the U.S. Senate, please raise your hand. All right, fine. Thank you. If you've walked across the United States, would you please raise your hand? Very good. If you wrote a book when you were 91, would you please raise your hand? Good. If you are a daughter, a sister, a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother, please raise your hand. Very good. If you have peace on your heart and you carry that as a wish for the world, please raise your hand. Very good. I give you our good friend, Doris Henning.
That's wonderful. Look at this. Isn't this wonderful? She knew I'd have a script. When you get to be 95 years old, you have to have a script because you can't remember what day it is. You look at the calendar and you try to remember what day it was yesterday. I want to thank you, the Mothers United, for the privilege of talking to you this afternoon and walking with you this lovely day. I know you Mothers United have been spending the day indoors listening to people telling you what to do. So a good walk down the main street of this dear, lovely, clean little city is such a wonderful way to end the day. I think so. This is a beautiful day, isn't it? We are so lucky to be living here. We do not have to worry about being flooded out of our beds tonight. We have no problems with too much water here. We do not have to fly to safety or to go up to the attic, away from rising water, there to drown while waiting for a rescue. How lucky we are to live in a town with a good mayor who takes care of the city for us, and good public schools with good teachers to teach our children, to prepare them for the world in which they are going to have to live. Your job as mothers of children is equally as hard. It is your task to teach your children good manners, social graces, obedience, good behavior, and good truthfulness. Never to tell a lie, never to use foul language, and always to be kind to other children, whether they're younger than you are or older than you are. It is your duty as parents to keep in touch with the school, to know what it is being well staffed, to know what is being taught. We live in a democracy, which means you are the government. And it is the job of each of you to make sure the school is physically safe and that fundamentals are being taught in preparation for the next grade. It is your business as parents to know how well your child's teacher is functioning, and how well your child is behaving in the classroom, in the schoolyard, and in the bus if he or she is being transported. It is also your job as a mother to see that your children have been given a good breakfast before they leave for school, to have helped them with their homework the night before if they have needed and asked for it, to make sure they have done their homework assigned to them before they go to bed. They will sleep better if they have, looking forward to the next day well prepared. How lucky you are to have all the modern electric appliances needed to run a home that does not require long hours of labor. You are expected to pay a price for all these conveniences. You have been freed so that you have the time to nurture your children, each one of them, and to keep your house clean with a vacuum cleaner, to make nourishing food on an electric or a gas stove. You do not need to go out to a wood pile to carry in a heavy arm full of wood to start a fire in a cook stove, or get it started in the morning when you come down in your nightgown and get the place warmed up before the kids get up. You don't have to do that. That's what we used to have to do. Use that new spare time that my mother and I never had for something worthwhile. You Mothers United are earning the right to those electrical machines today because you are here learning how to help others and the world around you. What you do in this time of the life of your children will enhance the rest of their lives. Teaching them to live in the world as a good citizen, that's your job. Help them to do well in school by providing them with a peaceful, relaxed home in which to study. Treat them with fairness, truth, and humor. Have fun with them. Teach them to always speak well. You do not need to be rich or have a college education to teach children while they're in your care to speak well and beautifully, to have good manners, and to love the people around them, even the ones that they do not necessarily like. Teach them to be independent, never whiny or sorry for themselves, and teach them not to hurt other people's feelings, to envy other people's belongings, but to respect themselves and do honor to others so that others will do honor to them. American women are freer to do their job well than in any other woman in any other country. Besides nurturing your children, you must protect, correct, and keep our country in which they will be living, to mend its ways and to take care of it environmentally. We have only one life to live here, this our life of ours. Use this planet and teach your children to use it with respect. Give it loving care. Remember the people coming after you, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, and all those that you loved. I didn't mean to preach to you after all the learning you have had to absorb today. But my job of being a great-grandmother means I have a duty too, to remind you of your duty. And if your dinner hasn't been all that great, make some popcorn in the evening for them to munch on while they study.
Thank you very much, Franny D. I was going to stay a little longer, but I have to go home and get my vacuum cleaner out, because I have to reacquaint myself with that. We think that we'd like to end with some music, so I'd like to invite Kathy up to do a little song leadership, and then we're going to walk back to the college. Thanks, Kathy. And I want to remind you that there's more music tonight at the college. Do you want to say a little bit about the music?
Yes. But first, I'd like to also recognize that there is somebody that was on the square week after week, year after year, that is not with us at this point, and that is Kurt Koneska. Kurt passed away this summer. And if there was one person in my life, and it's funny because I didn't know Kurt that well, but more than anybody else, it was his influence and his presence that moved me forward. And I think he was a source of incredible commitment and encouragement to this whole community. And I just want to acknowledge that he is sorely missed today. And his daughter is here with one of his sides. In some songs, and Lisa is absolutely right. We have an outrageous concert tonight. We need you there. Okay? You need to be there. It's at 7 o'clock in the Mabel Brown Room at the college. We have Lisa McCormick, we have Pat Humphreys, and we have the Roaches. All right, Galen. When's the last time the Roaches were in the area? Come on, you need to be there tonight.
Not that often.
Okay.
I just got an idea of a song to sing when Meg read her poem, so join me in Gonna Lay Down My Sword and Shield. Give me a note, please. Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside and study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Study war no more.
I'm also a member of the Women's Studies Council. I'm also a member of the Diversity Commission, so wear a lot of hats here at Keene State. And a lot of people have been involved in putting this program together. And no matter what walk of life you're from or what academic discipline you might be involved with, it's really important that we're all working here together to create peace in the world. And wouldn't it be great if we had a peace studies department at Keene State? We'll work on that. So this whole day certainly wouldn't have been possible without many people. But first of all, the Mothers Uniting group, who just rock. All the Mothers Uniting, stand up. There's a lot of amazing performers for you tonight, but before I get started introducing them, I want to also say some thank yous to a number of other people here. The Keene State College Student Center staff, first of all, Mark Gempler for the use of this wonderful space. And certainly for the sound people. I mean, you wouldn't be hearing me now if it wasn't for Steve Armstrong, Corey and Greg and Pearlie Gates, who have worked tirelessly to put a wonderful sound system together tonight. Let's give the sound staff a hand. We'd also like to thank a lot of our sponsors, the Women's Studies Council, the Diversity Commission, the Multicultural Office, the Feminist Collective. All of these groups have supported us just in their time and in their energy and certainly the money that they donated. Special thanks to Nancy Haggerty, who has created the wonderful poster for the day. And we'd also like to thank Cheshire Music for their generosity in lending us the keyboard that we have up here tonight. Okay. Also, there are several businesses and organizations that helped make this day possible. Everyone's Books from Brattleboro, Keene State College Child Development Center, People's Linen, Monadnock Talks, Educational Praxis, and the Toadstool Bookshops. We'd like to also thank all the workshop presenters and all the volunteers. There's a lot of other volunteers, too numerous to name, and let's just give them all a round of applause. Let me welcome to the stage our very own star from Brattleboro, Vermont, Lisa McCormick.
Good evening. What she didn't tell you is that I graduated from Keene State.
also one of the prayers, and this was written by a firefighter in Somerville, Massachusetts. He wrote the words to this. He's also a Vietnam vet, and Maggie wrote the music. He wrote the words, Bill Barlow, and it's called A Prayer.
Microphone? Okay. All right, here we go. Pat Humphries and Sandy O, now called Emma's Revolution, and all of you probably know Emma Goldman's quote, "If I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution." Yeah! All right. And these two are, as it's been said, the epitome of great contemporary political music. a musical uprising of truth and hope from award-winning activist songwriters Pat Humphries and Sandy O have been featured on NPR Democracy Now! And were winners of the John Lennon Songwriting Grand Prize. Their songs are sung around the world. Let's welcome to the stage Emma's Revolution.
Good morning.
Morning.
Where are we? Hey, we're really glad to be here.
I'm Emma.
I'm the Revolution. Of course, together we are the Revolution, and that's why you're here today at the Day of Waging Peace. Wait a minute. Of course, we're all the Revolution, and that's why you're here today at the Day of Waging Peace Conference. That's what I thought.
Is that really the Roaches? Oh my God. Aren't they amazing? I'm Pat Humphries. I'm Sandy And I never thought in my lifetime I would be saying I'm closing for the Roaches. Here we are. What more can I say?
Do you have this guitar there, or could I have a little more in the monitor? And what about Lisa McCormick? You have the job to inspire your story. I can still take a little bit more in that monitor, please. Well, I think this that'll be a good start. So we thought we'd start off with a song about what's probably been on your minds just as much as been on ours, what's been going on down in the Gulf Coast. And the thing about it is that it wasn't really a surprise, right? Anyone who's been working on environmental issues or peace issues knows that we've got to stop our use of fossil fuels for many, many reasons, including the fact that they can spill all through the Gulf Coast, and including the fact that they are causing just rapid climate change. So this is our happy little ditty about global warming. And it's a love song for Mount Kilimanjaro. What had been for 11,000 years, ancient ice and snow is melting like 11,000 tears down the face of Kilimanjaro.
Where time itself is frozen, suspended in the air. Now the water flows up Kilimanjaro, damaging the essence of our atmosphere. Threatens our existence, Kilimanjaro. Oh, Kilimanjaro.
shout outs to all the people here at Mothers Uniting who put this thing together, right? So Patrice, Suzanne, Jessica, Karen, all of us volunteers.
It's a treat to stand on the stage with y'all. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much for bringing us all here. And you're giggling.
Yes. This is Boy Roach. That's nice.
He likes to sing, so.
Perfect.
Perfect.
This is Sister Teresa, right? Or Mother Teresa.
All right.
Well, September 11th was, I'm sure, an emotional event for y'all living in the city. We were in the Washington area at the time, but we were moving from the New York City area to the Washington, D.C. area. My first impulse wasn't to sleep for several nights, but my second impulse was these three words came to mind, and they were peace, salam, and shalom. And they were the things that sort of brought me back out of that fog and just helped me see the work ahead. And when we sang this song at the first peace rally in New York City, it turned out to be the day that the bombing of Afghanistan began. And people were finding out as they arrived at the rally that the bombing had begun in their name. So just to add insult to injury, our cynical administration chose that particular day. But so they said, "So can you sing a song that'll get everybody singing?" And I thought, "You've got to be kidding me! In New York City, 10,000 people." And we started singing this song, and 10,000 people sang this song with us, all the way from Union Square to Times Square. So some of you may know it. If you don't, we'd love it if you'd sing it with us. Anyway, thanks again, y'all, and keep up the peacemaking. Here's your part. Peace.